Good. So thank you for waiting and thank you for coming to the final part of Architecture Fondas Forum and to the Experiments platform cycle to wrap up. I invite all the Experiments platform participants to sit in the circle. The rules are very simple. There are 2 white chairs, so each of you know when's your time to come and present, and you just pick which chair to sit and take a microphone and start presenting. Yeah, and I think we can start with Magdalena Beliavska and her project, The Church of the Urban Dreamers.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Since I'll be talking about dreaming, maybe I should do it in an ASMR voice. Well, I'm waiting for the slides right now, but yeah, my project is called The Church of Urban Dreamers. I'll probably have to explain the name of the project a bit. So, in European culture, church is not only a religious, group of people, but also a building. And since this platform was created to experiment with architecture specifically, I decided to call my project The Church of Urban Dreamers because my main goal is to create a community and also to experiment with space. I'll probably read my manifesto so I don't ramble too much. What if I tell you there is a chance we all dream same places? We see them differently, sure, we do. Yet we all connect to the same server, one of many, and build our game-like alternate world. And what if we could investigate, explore, describe, and digitalize it? What if we could create a digital city, a collection of dreamy urban patterns, bits and pieces, which at the end of the night concludes nicely into a scheme, a map, or a model? So, as you can see from the manifesto, which was written at the beginning of the project, my main goal was to create this sort of a dreamy metaverse. But when I started diving deeper into the topic of dreams, I've noticed that there is just so much information, and dreams are basically uncontrollable. That's how I found the Oneirocritica, which is an art of dream interpretation. It was mainly popularized in ancient Greek times by Artemidorus, and he created this dream categorization. And we can see how much nuance is laying in the topic of dreams. And I've just decided to focus on one particular kind of it, which is called the state dream, usually dreamed by the inexperienced dreamers, and it reflects what we are currently experiencing, how we are feeling, what do we see in our real world. Also, it is worth to mention that in our modern culture, dream is seen as, well, we should thank Freud and young Freud because they made dream a topic of psychoanalysis. So basically, accordingly to them, dream is something that we create inside our minds, and it reflects our past traumas, experiences, our hidden desires, and so on. While in the past times, especially in indigenous cultures, dreams were seen as a sign from our ancestors, also as a sort of divination. So basically, your dream could tell your future. And I got really fascinated by that past explanation of dream, and decided to kind of explore it in 4 different planes. So the first plane is space, the second one is imagination, the third one is subconscious, and the fourth one is body. I've started with space, and on September 3rd we had a little sleepover here in the same place, on the same floor we are all standing on right now. And a group of 7 people created a collective nest, collective bed, let's say. And by that I explored how people connect into a collective and how they try to claim the space, how they make it comfortable, how they make it safe, and what do they dream about. And basically it's very interesting. During the exhibition, you'll see some pictures from the sleepover, but we all kind of, without any further discussion, started to create a fortress-like creation. And we all decided that it reminded us of our childhood, and this construction brought us the feeling of safeness. And we had all kinds of weird dreams, but mainly I've noticed that the topics of collective, of space building, was noticeable in most of them. So here are some drawings from the morning session, during which we told our dreams and we tried to draw them on. My second experiment was tied to the topic of subconsciousness and to this indigenous understanding of dream as a sign from our ancestors. And on November 2nd, in Lithuania, we celebrate the Day of Dead Loved Ones. I forgot the name of it in English. So basically, in our pagan tradition, death was not something scary. It was not something we should be dreaded about. And usually on this day, on this night, people would celebrate it with like the living ones, and they would prepare food for the dead people, and they would pray for them and remember them and talk about them and just act as if they are here with us. So I've tried to recreate it with my family members and my neighbors. And on November 2nd, during our breakfast, we would tell stories about the dreams which were visited by our dead ancestors and how this encounter looked like. Maybe it happened more than once. Maybe our, dead mothers or fathers or grandparents told us something. Maybe it was very, scary or in some way helpful. So yeah, it was my way to pay respect for our family members which are not with us. And my next topics I would like to explore the topic of body and the topic of subconscious as well more in the future, because this project is definitely not over yet. And I feel like I'm rambling a lot. So I would really recommend you to later on take a look at this little book that I've prepared, and it will be available on my in my exhibition, and just to read some of my research because it's very interesting. And at the end, yeah, it is really. At the end, I would like to read some dreams. A very wide open space, heaven-type beat. Death walks there nervously, very scared of something, lost, helpless. I saw her like this in front of me. I know that someone was there, accompanying me. It felt familiar, but I didn't recognize them. We bowed to the death. We praised her. I remember very precisely the phrase I said, specifically in English. We are the children of your art. I wanted to somehow help her, heal her. I'm watching a movie about a mother who kills her 3 sons, but she can't kill the youngest one because he's too cute for her. She also has a daughter, but daughters in that world are not even fully developed people, but some strange degenerate molds of cells, so no one loves them or wants to kill them. And I'm watching that movie, but I am in this movie too. I am that daughter. I know I don't even have a body, but I'm still scared. I remember my birth. Father leaned over me and gently said, "What's up, daughter?" And I was laying on a metal tray, the kind on which surgeons place all kinds of operated organs and tumors. I felt that my formless body just stuck to the metal and I was unable to do anything on my own. I knew I would be carried on that pallet forever. I understand that I was born fully conscious. I consist of the brain, nervous system, and some other strange cell formations. I kept turning off the movie and going back to more normal activities, to my real life, but I always felt the tension and the nearness of death. And later I would turn on and again be that strange organism that just lays there and observes, does not believe in its own safety, and it's afraid that it will be the next victim. But why is not having a body so horrible? In that particular situation, it protected me, although at the same time, it took away my independence. And these dreams are excerpts from my dream library that I also started collecting during this experiment. And if you have any interesting dreams, you can submit them. And the main topic, like the main purpose of that dream library is not to collect as much dreams as possible, but to kind of break that wall of silence and turn something that is very private, a dream which is very intimate, to something more public and something normal to share, something which feels real as our waking world. And also I hope that this dream library will be an excellent source of material for the future dream interpreters, and I hope that that profession soon will be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Magdalena. I would like to ask your mentors, Claudiane and Cam, maybe you have some feedback for Magdalena.
Well, nothing that we haven't already told her, but maybe since you're making dreams public, maybe we make feedback also public. No, it was, it was a very interesting experience for us to follow Magdalena and her obsessive passion she has about dreams. Of course, we talked about a lot of stuff that have shaped this presentation, but have many traces beyond Freud, I would say. There has been a lot of interesting thoughts, especially, obviously also trying to connect it with space. In the sense of also thinking of dreams as some counter imaginations to also what our current waking lives in terms of space limits. So in that sense, I think there's so much to look at, also because of the condition in which dreams come to be, and this is something we have extensively talked about, this possibility of sleeping, which is getting more and more precarious from different factors, and also the forms of knowledge that come up with dreams, especially as a reflection to reality. So that is something that at least we have been very interested in seeing, and also trying to, it's not so easy to actually make sense of dreams in general, I think, and also it's such an intimate process, especially if you see it from the perspective of dreams as also a way that tell a lot about also past experiences, especially in terms of traumatic experiences, etc. So I don't know. I'm still very impressed by the bravery and courage, and also self-confidence that Magdalena has also in taking that step of also, how to say, negotiating the trust to bring other people's dreams into public space and how that can make sense. And the last thing I want to say is that that then relates to the conditions she creates into building up space with other people to have that possibility to share. So, yeah, well, thanks.
Maybe someone else has a question or wants to ask a question. If no, then I will. You?
Right. It is also a technical skill to gather dreams, right? Did you feel any progress or change in methodology or like during the process?
Yes, basically at first I just started an Excel sheet and I would write those dreams down. And obviously my first instinct was to make some sort of, to draw some conclusions, to start to diagnose what some dreams may, maybe sign off. But I decided to not do this, and I decided to treat dream as a dream. Nothing else matters to me at this point because I'm not trained in, psychology. I'm not a dream interpreter. I have absolutely no qualifications to think why some people dream of certain symbols, and I have no courage to go so deeply into their private lives and try to do a therapy sessions with them. So right now I'm just collecting dreams, but obviously there is, in this Excel sheet, there is a column for a dream, the dreamer, and the keywords. And I've noticed that I have some dreamers which are submitting their dreams very often, and there are some patterns, and definitely some people, they have a tendency to dream of very specific objects, very specific environments, very specific people, or moods. I have my little, theory on why, but I definitely don't want to draw any conclusions, and that's not my main focus point. So when it comes to dream collecting, I don't have a methodology yet because I think I'm doing something important, but I don't know yet why it's important, Yeah, sure.
I'm curious about, because you said from the beginning like you wanted to turn it into spatial or connect more, but you already did that also with this sleepover. And how did you arrange the space, or what did you structure, and how did you sleep? Or like, I'm curious about like that event.
Sadly, I forgot to include photos here because I thought, well, they are on the exhibition, so there is no point to have them here. But it looked like that. Basically, we were in this space and we found some chairs. We found some disassembled chairs from the National Theatre, which were softer. We also had a bunch of textile. And we kind of just started building some sort of a big collective nest. We used those soft chairs to make our bedding, to make a mattress, and we used some fabric to create more private areas. So around each person there was a shield of that fabric, and it looked like this children's game of building a fortress with chairs and fabric, the space to hide in. And it looked messy, but it was very cute. It felt very private, felt very safe, and it was just really nice to turn back to this mood of adolescence when you're an adult. And I think that in the future I will continue organizing sleepovers, but maybe my next focus will be not the space itself, but enhancing the imagination, for example, or exploring body conditions, because I also noticed that the position we sleep in matters, and maybe we can create some sort of a sleeping robe, special sort of clothing to modify your bodily, your body condition, and maybe that also makes a huge difference, And when it comes to imagination, I had some sort of a sleepover which was all about that. We tried to recreate this ritual from ancient Greek, which was called Eleusinian Mysteries. And we made some traditional food, some traditional drinks. We did a huge research about that, what it was all about. We tried to to recreate it with as much detail as possible, and see how that enhances our dreams. Maybe it has some impact on it or not. Just to have this very intense activity and this very intense research before you go to bed.
I have one question. After all these months of you getting deeper into dreams, how did your relation to the spaces where you fall asleep changed, and both the physical ones, and also how do you treat the spaces you find in your dreams?
That's a very interesting question, because unfortunately I'm insomniac, so for me falling asleep in general is a very hard thing to do. So I don't really think too much about physical conditions, but when it comes to spaces that I dream about, well, it has changed. Because before that I had this one sort of an environment that I have built in my mind, and I would turn back to the same city, to the same place each night, and I would just wander around the city, do my dreamy activities, and unlock different levels of the same space. And right now I tend to have more dreams about very random places, very random people, and very unusual things, actually. And maybe that has something to do with the little rituals that I tend to do before I go to sleep, because each night I do this practice of dream wishing. So basically I have an intention set for what I'm planning to dream about, and I try to think about it as much as possible. Maybe I use other enhancements like smell, taste, sound. Maybe I look at some pictures or just watch a movie about this particular topic, and then I try to dream that. And sometimes it helps. Sometimes I really go to those places that I wish to go to. So yeah, something has changed for me, definitely.
Thank you for your answer. And if someone has some dreams to share, you can definitely share them with Magdalena. And now I would like to invite the Santa team for the next presentation. So Lucas, Emilia, Augustas, everyone, Augustas too. No.
Hello? Yeah. Hello, fellow human beings. So, this is Augustas and this is Lucas. My name is Emilia, and our project is called Eksperimentų, in honor of one of the most common lichens in Lithuania, Xanthorrhea parietina, because we are inspired by lichens. And if I had a little bit more time to talk about them, about their biology and ecology, I believe all of you would be obsessed with them too. Yeah, more about that. So, first of all, what are lichens? Because they're not plants. They are a symbiotic mutualistic organism, or a tiny ecosystem composed primarily out of a fungus and some algae, but different kinds of bacteria and other kinds of fungus are also important in this relationship or relationship of a being. And lichens don't have roots. They absorb water and nutrients straight from the atmosphere with the surface of their bodies, with their whole surface of their bodies. And this is why they can be excellent bioindicators, which means that they can help us to identify the level of air pollution in a given area where they grow or don't grow, because there is a spectrum of tolerance to air pollution. Some lichens are very sensitive to it, some are more resistant, and some lichens can even thrive in moderately polluted urban areas. So what lichens are and how they are, meaning like different kinds of unrelated organisms came together to compose another kind of being. And its sensitivity to its environment, its lichen's ability to reflect its surroundings is what genuinely motivates us to talk about things differently. And in this case, we want to talk about abandoned spaces. And also, lichen's growth rate is really slow. And it means that it only can grow in undisturbed places. And one kind of undisturbed places would be abandoned buildings. And Augustus will talk more about them.
Actually, we have an exhibit next to the door to the bar, which is a wooden board with some lichen growing on it, and it grows super slow. But you can already see it. It was, okay, you'll see some pictures later. But yeah, and maybe the main conclusion from this that we got was that this actually sounds like a progressive city, lichen having these qualities. And we were fascinated with lichen for quite some time, for a few years. And actually Magdalena was a part of this fascination as well, like a year ago. And yeah, so we wanted to try and grow lichen ourselves because we found out that it's possible. There are some methods to do it, and we started to look for locations for intervention sites in the city. And at the beginning, our intention was mostly artistic. It was an attempt to assess the ecological qualities of the spaces that we do the interventions in, like using these bio-indicator qualities of lichen. Yeah, and we also wanted to experiment with this method, with this technology of making biopaint and seeing how it grows, what works, what doesn't, what are the outcomes. And we started researching locations. Somewhere there, right? No. Help me, yes. Oh, yes. So these are the locations that we picked a few years ago. And we are looking for spaces that would be abandoned, that would have these like abandonment qualities, but would still be used even sparsely by people. So we would have some audience for interventions in the end, but it wouldn't be too much disturbed. So it would have the quality of an abandoned space for this different kind of ecology in the city. And yeah, but another slide. Yes. But while we were looking for funding for our project, the space has changed dramatically, and there's nothing wrong with the change, but we had a problem with how it came. It was very sudden. Both projects had some conflicts with locals or institutions that were responsible for it, and I won't expand there, but maybe in the bar later. But yeah, so maybe another one. Yeah, so we found this lichen being somewhat an antithesis to this kind of development. That it is slow, it is symbiotic, it is a sensitive organism, and it goes against these kind of development projects, fast, rapid, out of context, and top down mostly. And yeah, so this encouraged us to go deeper into the research. Yeah. And we enrolled in Experiments platform last spring. We met Claudiana and Cam, started having conversations about it, reading more, thinking more of the sites than the lichen itself, which for us that was somewhat a shift, because at first we were mostly interested in ecology of the place, and now the politics came in as well of these spaces, and yeah, and the sites became really important for us. Another one. Oh yes. More research, yeah. Yeah, and we raised some questions about these spaces, and it became evident that it actually makes way more sense than we thought to put some yogurt on the wall in an abandoned place, and yeah, so we did this. The whole summer was about it, right? We made some installations, interventions in the city, and yeah, maybe you can take over from here.
Yes, so as August has said, our previous locations were took over, and we further look for unabandoned sites, and especially that are left for decay and that are full of nature. And starting from the left, so the first one is Firefighter Tower Station, which has different surfaces of bricks and foundation of concrete, which is really interesting. And the central one is tennis court, which has wooden board that is as well part of it as well in the exhibition. And the last one is Žirmūnai Winter Port, abandoned location. And yeah, the first thing that we wanted to do in those locations, so actually select and observe the current lichen that grows here, scout and yeah, collected local lichen mostly. And yeah, basically there are very many sorts of them. And after the collection, we wanted to make a recipe. And we were experimenting a lot. Actually, the first experiments were like, we made the bio paint, and then we stored it in the refrigerator, and like it fell off, and yeah, the yeast exploded. It's so funny things. But it's interesting that the recipe is pretty simple. It consists from lichen locally collected. Then the yogurt, then agar powder, sugar syrup, a bit of flour that could change the whole whole liquidity, and yeah, that's it. And you can apply this to the different surfaces and watch how it grows. So all of us applied, and we did like a lot of workshops and doing this whole summer. Yes, and then we looked how it goes, and it's very interesting that some of the installations were washed away by rain, some of them eaten by slugs, and some got a bit messy with the fungi. And some were intact. Either some who were in urbanized area, they have like some response with the graffiti artists. So it's really like became like way of maybe even communicating. And there you see the flow in this example, how it grows, how it reacts to the environment. And yeah, and this is one of those invites of the workshops that we had. This is from Dūmų Fabrikas, and we actually discussed about what to do with those abandoned spaces, sites, buildings, how to react, and there we represented our space nursing narrative, like ideology, and we said how we do this. We give the recipe. We give even the small booklets with all the information if you want to become a member of us. So you really see the workflow. And as well, on the corner, there's a picture of board with geometrical shapes. And yeah, that was one of the first idea that we started with. We were very excited with the lichen and with the geometrical patterns. So we tried to create them, and as well we implemented here. And this is the map of those scouted locations of interventions of sites. And yesterday there was actually expedition, so maybe Augustas could tell more how it went.
Actually, one of the sites is not on the map. After the last workshop, we gave away some of the lichen paste, and now our participants made interventions themselves in the city. So one is somewhere there in Lesdine, and but another one. No, next one, yes. That was yesterday. We had a fun, crazy event late at night. I'm sorry for everybody who missed it. It was amazing. We have some pictures. So we entered the intervention sites at night, which was very exciting actually. This is one of the squares you saw before. Now it looks like this. This is very fresh from yesterday. Another one. Yeah, this is Kalnų Parkas location. And this is mixed, I think. Okay. Yeah. That's right. These are the trumpets. We have some specimens in the exhibition as well. So check it out. With time they get pale. So there's some fresh ones from yesterday, and these are still very green. Another one.
As well, we have water spray. So if you want to watch how they look naturally, you can apply the spray, and it really gets back to the color and to the shape.
Yeah, lichen starts moving. That was first time I was scared actually. Okay, so what's next for us? We had some plans to do some more workshops and some more writing. To finish up writing, we started, and we started on social media a few days ago. So find us there. Next slide is the link. Space nursing. I wasn't really using it. Sorry. Space nursing. So find us there. Follow. Some new things coming. Also, there is a project in Tallinn, which is in Estonia, a satellite thing, which is also ongoing, and we will have some events there. If you're up for traveling, maybe see you there as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Xanta team?
Maybe we would have some thank yous as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, thank you. The conversations we have were really nice, beneficial. And also there are some people that were participating in the workshops here. So thank you as well. You saw yourselves in the pictures. And that was a good time we had.
Do you have something like you said, workshops, but do you have something like, did this shift like the path of what you're exploring, or do you have some kind of, now we're going to focus on this, or I don't know,
Maybe the workshops themselves, no, because we didn't start inviting people until we were sure about what we were doing. And so this was basically June, August, right? And also this fall. But in May and April we were experimenting ourselves before starting open workshops. So, did I answer?
No, I don't.
No,
I was just more like continuing. Like, do you have from continuing from here? Do you know did this open up because you were in abandoned buildings, is it we're gonna shift, or you found out it works better with this mix, or do you have this kind of path?
Yeah, there were many adjustments. Yeah, we stepped away from yeast, right? We don't use it anymore. And also, yeah, a researching site and having an intervention there kind of sets a precedent to write about it and invite people to write about it, talk about it, think about it.
Well, actually, like all places for the interventions are like an experiment, because you never know how the environment will react to that installation. For example, we never imagined that it will get colonized by the mold, because like obviously in abandoned places there are a lot of mold, mites, all kinds of different things, and we never imagined that it will be eaten by slugs, like or snails or something like it. So yeah, we never know what will happen to them. And even the installation with on the boards, it's in an open area, it has no roof over it, but it's intact for some reason. Another ones were washed away by rain. So yeah, every other workshop will be like an experiment.
And it's not even that important that it grows or that it's intact. The one that's eaten by slugs was so interesting for us also to revisit, to see the empty board there. There was once installation that kept shrinking. So we will keep making these.
More questions?
I have a question for biologists. Maybe it sounds a bit dumb, but I really don't know it. It's like an harmless to the structure, because you are trying to experiment with it only in abundant structures right now. But if lichen is so beneficial in terms of, you know, environment and stuff like that, maybe it's the new material. Maybe it can be used in new structures. So I was really wondering, is it invasive or parasitic in some site?
Okay. So it just depends how you look at it. Ecologically, there's no such thing as good or bad. Every organism is competing with other organisms or collaborating with them and doing some damage and doing some good. And every action of an organism can be interpreted differently. So, but basically it just attaches to the surface. It doesn't go that deep into it. Fungal filaments don't go deep into the structure. So I would never call it parasitic or invasive, because it also grows really slow. So if I answer your question.
It has some very minimal erosion on the surfaces because of the micronutrients it takes, but it's really...
Thanks.
So thank you for your questions and answers. A small reminder, if you are presenting or asking questions, please keep the microphone, because the sound is being recorded. And now I would like to ask a question. Of course.
It's partially a question, but also partially feedback I think we owe to them. Also, to be fair with Magdalena, well, first of all, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you guys, especially also because we learned a lot. And I really, really wish from deep of my heart that anyone can attend to a lecture of the nerdy Emilia. It's something very, very special. And it has been very interesting to see also levels of collaboration between the interests of the three of them, which is very different, and I think very nutrition for each of the practices. But at the same time, the challenge that this for us was in the beginning to understand a little bit like these two. We found it a little bit stretched, this idea of like, in a way, talking about abandoned places, and then using lichen, also because lichen itself opens up so much possibility to talk about, also spatially. But then it was very interesting to take a bit of time, because lichen takes time, and also abandoned places somehow are a product of, you know, time or intended time negligence. But okay, I will start with a question that a little bit sums up my feedback. I wonder if you still can. I mean, I understand the reason why you are trying to focus on the abandoned places, especially you thoroughly explaining what has happened to them, also taking time to be there through this nurturing practice that you created around lichens, and talking about how precarious they are in terms of property shift and how intentionally they have been also damaged. To then drop value and become, you know, speculative in the market, etc. And this is very interesting because it's a form of bringing people and talking about it. And I have to say, yesterday we were in this night inspection tour with lichen. It was very nice. So if you ever organize it again, please join. But I wonder if, because now Emilia was talking about like how human based this notion of what is like parasitic, for example, or what is damaging to the structure, etc. Does the notion of abandoned now change? Because obviously these places are not fully abandoned. Like, can we still call these places abandoned?
Yes. That's an excellent question. Really connects. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And it connects to what Magdalena said, that why are we not doing it in public spaces or new buildings, or making it somewhat an asset of, for the place. But an important part of this is that we acknowledge and try to also talk about the qualities that abandoned spaces have, that for the ecology, for the local species that live there, and also for the territory itself and inhabitants, human inhabitants around it. Like what qualities can it bring to us, not ignoring it or walking around it, actually inspecting it and being curious about it. So that's why we maintain the focus on abandonment. And what were the questions, right? We had a full slide of. Yes. And defining abandonment is a big one for us as well. What does that mean? What does it mean for an abandoned place to be speculated in the housing market? What does it mean for all the species that live there? And if it becomes less abandoned, will they abandon the place, which is becoming less abandoned? And all these notions.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if we say that it's abandoned because there's no people inside, so it's not true. It's because when we like enter those spaces, they are full of nature, full of lichen, full of animals and tiny insects. So it's really looks like very full in a way. It depends on your prism how you look at it, but yeah, we see the beauty in what's inside.
We also had a single human encounter in Jemune, which was very, very special, unique. But, yeah, all sorts of.
Thank you.
So thank you for your answers, and I would like to invite Agnė to present her project.
Hello everyone, I'm Agnė, and I came here with the project Off-Grid City. I have to use that, okay. Yeah, so having done a few of the research projects on the urban landscape from environmental perspective, and having an interest in the play element in the city, I was quite excited to join the Experiments platform with this off-grid area project where I knew I would investigate and research those off-grid areas. What is an off-grid? In my project, it is places that are not really meant to be used according to the city planning. So it's actually the areas that are used by the citizens on their own initiative. And this use is visible through the traces of those unofficial paths that you actually see here in the photo, just behind the bench backs in the Serekiškiai Park area. And so it's a kind of an desire lines, and it's quite a common term in landscape architecture. However, in my project, I was focusing not on the shortcuts or the more convenient roads that are usually described as desire paths, but the parallel roads that actually are happening next to the city, like pedestrian pavements. So actually, when you walk it, you would have the same distance and the same direction, just as the one that you would have next to it in the city pedestrian walk. However, you would have a very different experience, like this alternative physical narrative, and actually this feeling of being on the other side is very evident, even in this very basic space that I just put a photo on it, because that you would experience the busy city life passing by, but not passing with you. And so I find it interesting to look deeper into this topic, why and what is happening, and why some people choose to use those roads. So I picked few locations to analyze this topic deeper, and so they are quite central, but quite different in character. So one of them is, again, the same place, Serekiškiai Park area, which is very central and very open, but it is used so actively off the grid that it has actually even two sets of paths in this area of, like, just behind the park, official park line. And another one I picked a bit further into the forest parks, just to make sure that maybe it was the water element that was attracting the people, but it wasn't. So, and the other one was the left coast of Neris, which is quite a big area. It's a quite long strip of land, and it's like 2 kilometer length and 10 to 20 meter width. And it's, for those who don't know, it's quite a wild coast of the river, and it's very different from this urbanized right coast. And actually behind the tree line is the very regular city life happening, which looks quite surreal in this photo. Just into my research, I realized that this area is about to undergo a reconstruction, which was quite, I was feeling really hands down when I realized that, because it was not the first area that I found out was going away or being urbanized. And I thought, is this the answer to my research, that those areas actually are just diminishing and not like this is where the urbanization is taking us, like smoothing and beautifying the city. And I found out so many terms of it, like designification or city sanitation and so on. So apparently this is a very big thing happening in the urbanization processes. And this is, some people are already realizing it's a bit of a problem. But I decided not to give up. And at that certain point, I also thought that maybe me continue doing that is also in a kind of documenting and capturing the moment what city is. And maybe, well, it will not really disappear, because I also later in my research realized that people are very creative and they find the ways to use those alternative spaces in different ways. Going into my research, I really wanted to explore what is happening there and who are using those places and what are using them. So at first you would think that this is the places of to escape the city and people, but when I looked deeper into it, it wasn't the case. Actually, they were much more social than they would be in the city, because whenever you meet someone and you would meet someone, the encounter would be so personal, and you know, you couldn't avoid the eye contact or saying hi or squeezing uncomfortably through each other, because the road would be so narrow. And actually, most of the roads are really meant for one person only. It was also a discovery for me that those escape places actually bringing people much closer together than the regular city pedestrian walks. Of course, I also interviewed some of the people, and I met all kind of people there. And well, the answers were really very personal, of the personal liking, why they did it, and in the kind of way it was a desire path, but not because they wanted to go faster somewhere, more convenient, but because they wanted to be in that kind of area. I also realized there were a lot of ghosts. I call them ghosts because I never met them, but I found a lot of clothes there. And, you know, unfortunately, I didn't encounter people in them, but whenever I was observing that, I was a bit afraid, and it was a very unsettling experience because I wouldn't know if I find the person inside, dead or alive, friendly or not. And so I actually, you know, had this very strong emotional roller coaster when I was passing those, you know, piles of clothes, and I didn't know if somebody drowned and left the clothes there, because some of them were really put neat together with the shoes next to it. So it was a very strong emotional experience walking past it. But well, yeah, I never met anyone inside or outside of the clothes, and also what I found out, I never found the same clothes the next time I went there, so I needed new ones. So I didn't solve the mystery, where did they go, or who put the new ones there. Another very typical thing in those areas were the surfaces. It was a very, very material walk, so you couldn't actually really daydream or really go very fast forward. Wherever you're passing, you actually had to be very present and aware all the time. And so I kind of call it, those paths really returned you to the planet Earth. So it was also something very different from what we have in the city. Beside the fact that it was very material, it was also very physical. So many times it was very challenging. And so you had to really bend, jump, or walk around and be quite creative to pass some of the obstacles. Another thing which I found out was quite surprising to me. Those areas really had content, and the riverside bank was like a century ago. It was a cow's road, quite a sad road, because cows were taken there to the slaughterhouse whenever there was a need for meat. So it was a death road. And so the traces of them are still evident. And half a century ago, this area was used quite intensely because before the bridges, people would use ferries. So the steps to the ferries are still present. So some history traces are still there. Well, I wasn't going to go into biological analysis of those areas because I think it really deserves another kind of research project. However, I couldn't avoid being really encountering those green explosions whenever I went there. So I had a closer look at it too. And I found many things happening in nature. It's really this within species competition and plants taking over plants. And again, plant and human relation, and it wasn't clear who is taking over the territory, the people or the plants, and the plants seem quite aggressive. But it is quite obvious because in the disturbed city soils, it's really the fast-growing weeds are growing, and it seems like the people are really left behind in this competition. As well, there are much more multi-layered relations there. I also found out there's a beaver population by the river. They're actually very, very central. And like it seems the beavers are people are fighting for the same one, for the tree, the same tree, but there seem to be like more more players in this game. Another thing, sorry, I'm going very fast through it because I found so many things in there, and I'm not sharing everything, just a few of the things, but yeah, later I can share with somebody more stuff. So there's this very nice off-grid messages, and I call it off-grid gallery, because it's really, really interesting stuff to see and find, and it was very like surprising to me as well. At some point, I was actually kind of struggling, and actually I think felt that I was falling into my own professional trap, because as a designer, as a spatial practitioner, I was looking for maybe those like places need to be fixing or added something, because there were so many challenges, like to walk there or to do something that was dark. It was not really very safe. But however, the further I went into this, I realized that like this was not the right thinking, because like in any ecosystem, if you add something, you actually ruin that area. I mean, you can't really even with the tiniest thing. And again, would it still be a free zone if you add something to it? And indeed, those places were the places of anti-design, and people were very creative in finding the ways to sit, to do whatever they wanted. Like in this example, they would sit on the curb of this path, and of course they would obstruct the other walkers' like way. But then they would pat every dog that was walking by, and there's a very strong social interaction. So again, it was different from this any city public space experience. So later in my research, I realized that there are two elements taking place in my research. It's the controlled, the context, and then control those areas. Because without the context, it didn't make sense, and so in a way, one doesn't exist without the other, and maybe it's the way it's supposed to be, instead of going into the very polished, smooth city environment, the way that is going right now. What I also discovered, but which was very interesting for me, that those very wild spaces, they actually within themselves, they had this. Both of this control and control at the same time, because whenever you were there in this very like free zone materiality, but having this like never-ending city sound, you felt in the city but not in the city at the same time. So it was this very heterotopian experience. Okay, so I realized I wanted to transfer my findings into practice. And I was looking for a language that would combine both control and uncontrol. And I thought, the tile was something that always present in my research. So it was like really in the perimeter of all the areas I was observing. And some of them were misbehaving and sliding down this slope. So I decided to use it as something that represents a very fixed urban fabric, and usually is really meant to show us where we have to go, but have it free. So this juxtaposing of urban tile being free would allow to build your own uncontrolled reality. So my installation is actually a pile of tiles. So you maybe passed it on the corner here. And they are free to arrange any way you want. So actually I left the tool to do that. And what you see is my reality a day ago. Maybe today I would have it different. And I find it, by the way, but watch your backs, is quite heavy. And also, it's very material. And when I don't know if you ever tried to do something like that, but it really has this sense of your own masterhood that you control your way. I also made a scale model, which in kind of way ended up being for me an urban Zen garden, because you can actually do the same thing. You can try to look for your way what is system and no system to you. But funny thing for me, actually, I wanted to make it more chaotic, but I couldn't. So in a way, it's a self-reflection of your own way of seeing things. So maybe you want to have it more chaotic, but you can't. So it's something for me that I discovered new. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
The fan. I guess, Erika, maybe you have some comments for Agne.
Yes. I mean, I wanted to say, because for me, what I've been most interested in following, I mean, I've been like then mentoring, discussing, following your work, has been the way of how you engaged in this. As for me, this been actually an exploration in creativity. Like how I see it, like this interest in going off the path has also been like you trying to go off the path and like exploring things. And I have seen the main like search has been about how to pack this into a format, no? Like you've been researching, finding beavers, and then how to do this. And I think you really managed to do that, but you didn't say it like in your presentation, because parts of it, like your slides that you showed, is a book that you made, but there is more in it also. You've been working a lot with taking pictures, reading stuff, finding notes, and this is put together in a book where I feel like you can follow these explorations in a nice way, where you have like, and for me it's like a manifesto, or like exposing these abandoned spaces, and that they contain a lot. But what I also like is that it's not hitting anybody in the face. It's more showing small things. These are happening. Also some quirky ideas of what detours, and I think this has been really nice to follow. And then there is another outcome that is an installation that then is like a translation of this organic off-grid city, changing, de-changing, and then the urban Zen garden that I think is also really nice. And I think that this is like you should, I think you should have lifted this as like your outcomes and as something that, because for me it's also been, you've been discovering writing through this process, no? Yeah. Like it's been really like how to pack this, how to place it in a format that, and there was something that was really nice to see, like when you sent like the booklet and has like it had turned into an installation, it was like, there are formats for gathering this. And I think this is really nice. I think this is something you have like achieved.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you're right. I had really like a bumpy ride in this experiment, because I had different expectations. And I wanted to do, as you're right, I was looking for a form or something, but then discovering so many things in those areas became the project itself.
Yeah.
And they're making this, I mean, it was a process. It was a process, and the research projects always give you that, but then I always like really struggle, and I was struggling at the time, because I wanted to make it into a format. I wanted to fix them somehow. I'm still learning, and this is maybe why I took this project, how like to find the answer, how to not design a design, how to not to have this preconceived thinking of what it's supposed to be and what it is, and just to go into research and be very open of what I find there. And then go with it, you know.
Because I think this is like with your, like it turned into this installation with the tiles, and then from that suddenly there is an urban Zen garden. For me, this is like these paths, like, and you don't have to know like what happened, but there is some kind of invitation to wonder, or.
Yeah, this was the case.
But,
thank you.
But then I wanted to ask, like, do you feel that you have found formats or methods or something that you could work with, like do you?
Yeah. I do, and it's not the first case that I have a similar experience. It's still a bit painful, but I'm not adjusting to to letting go, like to go with the flow. And but I'm really happy I could be in this experiment platform because it allowed me to do that. Because usually, you know, in your work you have to kind of have an outcome, a tangible outcome. And here it was I was allowed not to, actually. So not having an outcome is also an outcome. You know? So
but you had 3.
I have, yeah, but I had 3 when I decided not to have any. This is very interesting because at one point I thought nothing is going to happen, and I had 3. So when you let go, it actually happens. You know?
So this is nice outcome. Yeah.
Thanks.
Somebody else, or it's.
If there are no more questions, so I would like to invite Evelina and Oles. And also, please be pretty compact in your time frame, because we are not really ahead of time.
So, hello, everyone. I am Evelina, and this is Oles. And we will talk about our project, Celebrating the Failure. It's the project about how we failed another project, so we will just show the whole process, how it happened. So yeah, like first we came up with another idea, like we wanted to tell a story about places which are gonna be changed or demolished or just don't exist anymore, like by their function. So we wanted to tell that story in a not verbal way, but we wanted to tell that story through installation, using the material we can find in that place, and by research of that place, by not going through the space, but by humans who worked there, who lived there. So we started to looking for a place we can tell a story about, and then we found one, and we started to do like our research through materials, to the people. We met those people who work at that place, the director of the factory, and started to work on our concept. But then we had some issues. We needed to find a place where we can work, where we can create our installation, and also like we need to have the permission to work with the materials we found in that place. So we started to looking for it, like requesting the workplace, requesting the material, then more work on our concept. But then it was like a big time gap to get an answers, like, can we work here, can we use it? And we tried to ask again and still waiting for it. So yeah, then we requested again, but we got sent to other people, or just, I don't know, you can use it or you cannot. And then we made like the concept based on our research at the factory. So maybe Oles can tell about the first concept.
Yeah, I guess it was mentioned it was the Lea factory, actually. Yeah, and we were at that point where we need to discuss whether we need to fail completely our experiment, or no, but I just want to mention, and yeah, whether to fail it completely or whether still express our feelings of that rejection, so to say, and create an installation which is going to be like a project on our project. So we created, in fact, like an abstract space in which we put some material from Lea factory that was kindly introduced by Architektūros fondas. And there is like ideas that we wanted to create something, and by like random occasions we were just, deprived from it, and we just put that fabric that we can only look at it, and we can't touch it, we can't interact with it in any case. So yeah, that is kind of our failure. But still, I guess it's very important, and I am really happy that we don't have like a result, we have a failure. And I would say that we need to fail better and more, you know, because it's not kind of like something that we can present as like an ongoing project. It's like ongoing open question, why we failed, why we got rejected. And like at the same time, now people in this factory using the same approach, creating installation and etc. So who to decide who can do an installation, who can use approach and idea, who cannot. So that is about our failure.
Yeah, and also you can see like the finished project in the corridor, like that big cube with the question, why do we fail? So yeah, it's the end.
But I think then you shouldn't turn and say you succeed. But you wanted your idea, because what I was drawn with your original idea was also you wanted to tell a story through a spatial installation. It was like gathering a material, and we want to tell a story. And you have now, but it was like you got your other content, right? Because it was like it was discovering through this process. It's really hard to like work in real life environments, connecting with people, getting materials, like all these things. But the installation, you still done an installation by gathering materials, telling a story. It's just different content. And in a way, I feel like that this story is stronger. And I think it's also a great story in this context of experiments platform. It's just this like, you know, if you experiment, you need to like handle failure also, or it needs to be accepted. I think it's a great outcome. No? And I mean, in a way, it's also like, I think it's interesting, and I wanted to say, but I mean, we have had a lot of talks like lately, and in some way you're like performative in how you express this, and it's like, yeah, we failed, you know. But I think it's a safe role to be in. But I think also now later on you should like, great experience. We've done this. We have like an outcome of telling it's like materials, methods, but also to leave it like or how do you see it? Like, is this something you worked out that you want to continue working with, or is it?
Yeah, sure, because it's like how it happened. We intended to use all the materials from a factory and create like a tangible, interactive installation, sort of, where we can touch it, where we can like be present in it, you know, where we can experience it. But now we shifted the concept to that we can totally not interact with that. So that is, but it's like an open question, so we can still manage somehow to realize, to understand, to comprehend by ourselves why is it happening to us, not happening to other people. Of course, it's not like any tone of nihilism or something, rejection of like experience, names, yada yada, but still it's kind of, I don't know. For me, I still didn't answer this question, why we couldn't do that. Because just a lack of communication or some other points, I don't know.
But you get a source to take from for your new installation, like, yeah. But I also wanted, because I think another part, I mean, for me, I engage, or I see all these projects as like practice-based research or artistic research, or a way to build up a practice or find methods or something, you know. And for you, it wasn't just about like the sculpture or making this. It was also a chance to work together and to see, you know. So, and did that work? No? Yeah. So that's something great also coming out of it. Like, I think it's I think with these processes and experiments, there are like many outcomes that that are not just like, you know, the objects you show, or like, and that has to be like acknowledged, or I think it's important to remember, or like, yeah.
In a way, it's kind of therapy for us, just putting that materials in that cubes that we can't interact with, because I don't know, still it is a possibility to exhibit, still it's a possibility to express our thoughts, our feelings, even though we didn't succeed with our primer thought, primer intention. But yeah, somehow it's like healed and we got like calm with it now.
Because I think you're too negative because there is an outcome and there was a lot of decisions of like which materials to choose, how to expose them, to write this thing on the frame. Like there is, it isn't, you design something and you told a story through it. So it's just, yeah.
Actually, I also think that there are some nice encounters in your project. Does anybody have questions or comments too?
It's not a question, but I just wanted to thank you for this very nice approach on failure, because most of us, we are coming from the architectural background, and there is absolutely no place for failure. You're either a genius, this, Harvard boy or girl, or you are absolutely despised by the community. So thank you for showing us that it's okay to fail sometimes.
I have a question, yeah. So yeah, you could have just quit it. So what kept you, why did you produce this installation? Why didn't you just quit it?
Well, I guess there's no purpose just to quit. Still, you got some feelings and you got some, thoughts about what you're facing. So there is still a possibility to use that experiment, to be part of that experiment and to express your feeling of that. So actually we waited for an answers after ignoring till like last 2 weeks before we needed to present it. So it was just a spontaneous thought how to make it, like quick thought, how we feel about it, and then that installation came, so yeah.
Yeah, and also I wanted to tell it in presentation, but we a bit failed this one too. So yeah, but we were thinking about quitting, I think 2 times through the whole those months and everything, because while waiting for answers, not getting any, not finding a place to work, then being rejected with the materials and discovering that other artists will be working with that, and we were thinking to quit again, but then we thought, why? we can do something about it, or we just can quit and just tell nothing, or we can just bring a message and like show our process, because I think a lot of people, not everyone, but going through that process, one wanted to create something, so we just chose to share that.
Yeah, and also, is this factory somehow special, and do you want to continue to make a project with that particular object, or you will keep the concept of engaging with the background, with the concept, and search for another kind of place?
I don't know yet. We don't have any plans for future now.
Very nice, thanks.
Good, so thank you, and thank you, Oles and Evelina, and I would like to invite Augusta and Ieva to tell us a bit about the secret mainlands. Please take the white chairs if possible. Next slide.
I think we're good now. Oh yeah, we're good now. So we're happy to present a project which we called Secret Mainland, and it was the theme of war. So Aistė and Kamilė couldn't join us today, but I know that they're watching us somewhere from the screen in the audience. So hi. And it's me and Ieva today bringing the message of Secret Mainland to you, and the whole process of our work was curated by our great tutors that we had amazing time working with. One of them is also here. And yes, so let's go to another slide. And we're going to talk about the metal garages which were constructed in the second half of the 20th century. And these places are very common in Vilnius and all over Baltics as well. And we got interested in them about 2 years ago when we started to notice that they're just disappearing from the view. And at first, we were more interested in the construction of the garages. And here is quite a funny picture because people were told to move away their garages from the sites, and they became very popular actually, and even more expensive than they were before. So as you can see, this garage is written on it, it's neparduodu, which means not for sale. And at first we were looking into the construction of the garages and how we could use them, reuse them, and come up with something new. But a bit later we joined Eksperimentų platform, and our focus shifted to tell the stories of the people who were using the garages. And there was a big rejection that happened. So one time, all of us, we went to the site, and from talking about, we wanted to meet the people who we could talk to and get those stories. And this one time, in a place like this, we got surrounded from both of the sides by the people who were taking care of the place, and we were escorted to the exit all the way. They made sure that we left, and they watched us for the next 5 minutes to see that we don't return. And that was the time when we realized that we want to tell the stories, but not the people who are actually using the garages. So that's when our focus shifted from literal to secret, and that's why we called it a secret manland. And after that, we started to look into the details and the nature and these soft elements that were happening inside those territories. And for example, flowers that grow there, which are surprisingly many of them, and it creates a different atmosphere there. And to continue with, we also looked into the objects that were there, and we realized that these objects are telling stories, and we don't even need to talk to people after all, and that's how the process went further.
Yes, and we were very surprised by the amount of creative care that was showing up while we were strolling around. For example, here you can see various coverings of the garage locks. People covered them from cold, rain, by cutting plastic bottles, rubber, and pieces of tires that are plentiful in the garages area. Yeah, and while walking around the garages, we really enjoy them as some kind of paintings. The rusty surfaces were really beautiful for us, and we sort of started this process of documentation and yeah, finding every single thing about them. But as Augusta mentioned, our focus shifted to later to the huge area in Justiniškės in Vilnius, where the garages were recently demolished. This area is supposed to become a public park soon, which is interesting. The landscape that were left surprised us a lot, not because of the items that we found around them, but because of the pits that were revealed after the demolition of the structures, the metal structures. And it was, again, a sign of the secret care, as all of the pits were made individually. All had different shapes and uses, unique bits behind, unique bits hiding behind the unified, very modular garage boxes. So we started imagining how the pits could be appropriated in the new park by making performative, very simple actions. So here you can see me and Aistė having a picnic we sort of cleaned the area around it because yeah, it was quite dirty, and we painted the clean garage with just stripe of orange. Next, yeah. So here you can see the area in Justiniškės, the aerial view. Yes, we were the left picture is you can see the garages as they looked like, and now it's after the right part, after the or the left now, the right after the demolition, and you cannot see it very well, but if you look closer on the right, they're all already like there are piles of sand, and the pits are already being covered by these huge piles of sand. Yes. And in the final stage of this process, we looked more closely into the pits by making a documentation, as I mentioned, of the area, and we managed to capture the diversity of this secret manland. And we made a booklet. You can see it. It's in our exhibition. We showcase all different pits that we found. Yeah, that's.
Okay, and continuing with our exposition. So it's right around the corner when you leave the hall, and yes, as Ieva said, you'll find this booklet of documentation of the halls, and there's a big map of the halls that we found. So we got a drone picture and tried to trace all of the halls that are still existing, and keep in mind that they're still existing right now, so if you're interested you can have a look, but it's all changing very fast. So when we started the project, the area looked very different, and right now at the end of the book you'll see close up in what's happening with those halls and areas. And we would also like to invite you to follow our process further. So we created an Instagram account. It's called Secret Manland, where we upload pictures, some beautiful views, some realistic views of what's happening right there and right now. So I guess, anything to add?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Does anybody have questions or comments? Maybe, Danesh, you want to...
It was very interesting to work with the girls. They came up with a lot of ideas, and at first they were trying to discover this very special area which is being demolished now. And as women, it was very interesting for us that they wanted to discover these man caves, and maybe just get into men's minds, what they are doing here secretly inside their garages, and you know, when guys want to do their things, they just come here to these kind of areas, and they just have some thoughts about what would happen here, and now as they discover this area, it could be a very sensitive approach that women can women can make this area and change this area like they want to change it. They mentioned that there is going to be a park, a new park on this area, and they are putting this sand to cover these holes. And we were thinking about that instead of covering these holes, what if these pits could be used as different like attributes and different characters, like every pit needs another intervention or another kind of sensitive approach. And what if instead of erasing this area and making a new park in this area, what if we just think about these pits one by one and make something out of them? So it could be a total different park. And you did some interventions. You mentioned like you had some picnic there, you made an order, you collected flowers, we suggested you to make these kind of different interventions in these different pits, but at the end it just filtered down to a documentation and a nice booklet with all the different pits and a nice map on the wall, which you can see outside with these different shapes and the map of these pits. And we think that this is enough for now, just to have this documentation. And the project can maybe go on later. So it can be a part of a semester in a university or a semester for for students to how to approach these pits and how to make a real living park out of it, not just erasing the past and making some very usual parks here. And this could be a nice thing if you want to go on with the project, to research it with students or to make a project out of it, how to intervene in this different kind of pits. And maybe it would be interesting to work with women because these are so male infected areas, so maybe it would be a much nicer outcome if women would intervene in this male poisoned ground, you know. Oh, how to say that? So I think it could be a very nice project, and we are very happy that it became just this documentation, because it can go in a lot of directions. So you didn't give an answer, you didn't give a final installation, you just raised questions, you were researching a lot, and this is a very good base for future experimentations and future talks about this area and this kind of erasing the past, socialism and man cave topics.
I don't think there's anything to add.
Some questions?
So thanks, girls, for the presentation. I have a question about why weren't you welcomed in those garage areas? Like, I believe there was some illegal business going on there or something like it?
That's a great question that I forgot to answer during the presentation. So these garages right here, they're already demolished and there's only holes left. But a few hundred meters away from there, there is a location that we will not reveal because we might get in trouble. But there's an existing and perfectly working garage area there. And it's surrounded by trees, so it's kind of like the secret mainland once again. And people there, they're worried that if the word spreads out about that it's still working and it's working nicely, it will get demolished. So we try to convince the people who are protecting the area that we're students, we're doing this project, we find it interesting, and they're like, yeah, right. You're a journalist. And they didn't believe us, and right before they left, they even asked to get our numbers, so that if they see something on the news or anywhere, they would just find us, and I don't know what's next.
Yeah, and also we think, like, we were walking there and looking at all the pits, and we think that in some of them people are actually living. So, yeah.
Definitely.
There's like a fort that was built.
You can find it in our book.
In the booklet.
Thank you very much. if that's it for the question part, I would like to ask Evelina to come to present her project. And also reminding to be compact, precise.
So, hello everyone. I am Evelina, and my experiment was called Avoidless Architecture, and now I hope I will get in the time, and I will try to lead you through my quite interesting, strange journey. I want to start with this painting of Bruegel. And in a way, it is in connection with what the what the question was raised in the previous lectures about the education of architecture. And I was studying here in Lithuania at Vilnius Tech University, and I was in this very first years of education where they connected bachelor's and master's to one 5-year education project. And yeah, I should say that when I started my education in architecture, and when the 1 year passed and second, I understood that, oh my God, it's not really what I imagined. Because before even starting, I went to one architectural workshop, and there people were doing more experiments like here we were doing, and I thought that it's gonna be the same at university. And during the after the part of the projects and where they came evaluation of the projects, I understood that actually not even us students were in quite certain miserable, but our lecturers and professors too, because they're saying, oh, okay, it's very strange situation for us. This program we have connected, and we don't really know how it's gonna be, how you will end up. And we were like, okay, that's very strange. And in a way, it reminds me of this painting, that blind leading blind, that even the professors didn't really know where they are leading us. And in a way, it related to all perhaps atmosphere at university, perhaps at my personal life. And I was kind of really nearly giving up on studies or something, and I thought that, wait, I need to do something. And what I did, I started psychotherapy at the nearly year 2 of my studies, and that was very great decision. After which, I started to open up to my group mates and my friends, and I find out that actually I'm not alone who is struggling. I'm not alone who is seeking help. And then, these are my favorite memes that we used to share with my friends. And something like, if you don't heal what hurts you, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you. Or I think I smashed buildings because my father was distant. Or it relates to this situation of now starting a war instead of going to therapy. So I highly recommend therapy to every one of you to avoid some certain things which we are facing, all of us. But going more after I finished year 3 in Lithuania, I went to this Erasmus program exchange to Norwegian University of Science and Technology, where I started to search for possible supervisors, because I kind of felt that I don't want to come back to my university here in Lithuania, and I want to stay. And I thought, okay, I will try to find people in that university to maybe who will work in topics that I want. And I wanted to connect something with psychology and architecture. And this is the scheme you see that it came from my master's work, which was the hospital I will show you. But this is the scheme that, in a way, I after reading a variety of research, of medical research or philosophical research, I'm kind of as well raising the question, what is the ill society that we saying, and what is this healthy society? And in a way, after reading these either research or certain cases, I understood that in this so-called healthy society, we have more suicide aspects, and Lithuania is nearly #1 in Europe with the suicidal rates, and it's very huge stigma in Lithuania to kind of, even in the older generation, to seek help, or what is this mental health issues, like what are you talking about? And so in a way, yeah, so in this healthy society we tend to find more people who commit suicides than in this so-called ill society who are seeking help, but they are really working on it. Maybe they are still ill, but they become more or less healthy in a certain one or another way. And then maybe let's talk a bit what is psychiatry, because I was working with the psychiatry hospital with my master case. And yeah, so if you look to this Greek, what is this? Psychiatry, so it connects through this two words, which is soul or mind and healing. And so soul and mind is something really, in a way, metaphysical, but how the psychiatry through the centuries were understood and treated, it was really as well, switching from the very hard cases to the more mild, but people used to see, or some now as well, looking to the human being as a perhaps machine, like mental health is like to be treated as the other kind of health organs, like maybe it's enough just to have a pills or just have some certain invasion. And here you see the illustration of lobotomy, which was legal. So if somebody will suffer from some kind of severe symptoms, they would put this kind of metal stick to the brain and then will leave person in the very kind of childish manner and forever, they will leave you as a vegetable, so-called. So I was thinking, how is the psychiatry soul healing thing relates to treating human as a machine, like which you can in a way turn off. So in my master work, I was thinking that I want to perhaps search in this topic more and think how perhaps spaces and other activities with non-medicamental perhaps aspects could heal the people. So this is the beginning of master thesis, which was called Intersections for Healing Dialogues, Republican Vilnius Psychiatry Hospital case, which I defended last year in Trondheim, Norway. So this is the hospital. This is in Vilnius, Naujoji Vilnia. And the short story about this hospital, it was built nearly 130 years ago, but actually it lasted as a hospital only, like, as you see, 12 years, but then the world wars came and other events, so it was closed and was not working as a hospital from 1915 to 1961, and until now, of course, it's working. But as you see, the hospital itself really went through these changes and really lived this very interesting life of transformation. Here is the plan from the municipality of Vilnius, which I got, and here you see the map of the hospital. And you can see that this red mark is saying that it's preserved because it is in the it's all building and it has its history. And this blue marks shows that new things came, but then you can see that part of the structure was actually demolished or bombed during the severe historical events. So I decided to, in my master's degree, in a way, to kind of work with this historical side, that I should, in a way, think about the parts that it was lost, but in a way not to rebuild it as it was, but to look how the space could come and accompany contemporary mental health treatments. Before that, I was analyzing how many wards do they have and how many do they have places for non-medicamental healing practices. So this light blue shows the places of the wards where you just only lie down, and this dark blue shows where you would have this either library or sport hall. So in this very huge structure, you see that majority of the places there will be the place where you will just stay in your room and that's it. But then when I was really doing my best and trying hard to reach variety of specialists or professors of psychiatry and ask where is this psychiatry is going in upcoming 30 years, what kind of a place we need. One of the professors said, Dainius Pūras, he said, you know what, I think in upcoming time we will not need any of the psychiatry institutions because we really need to put more community-based service practices, and we really need to change the focuses on how we understand what is this mental health issues, and just maybe be more educated on that topic. So I was a bit confused, so what should I do now? But I decided to work with places that would connect people, not only patients, but the society. Because as I said to you, I kind of, from my experience and from observations, I understood that in a way we kind of suffer, majority of us, and in one way or another. And so my main focus in my master's degree was not the patient of the hospital, but my patient was the society. So I wanted to create spaces where both patients of the hospital could meet and as well the society members could come and have some kind of non-medicamental practices or activities where they could just spend their time and heal together. So yeah, so in a way not exclusion but inclusion. Yeah, and like from the having some severe feelings and going straight to the hospital and to the ward and medicaments, I thought about the place where you could just, within the different aspects, could just go towards well-being. Yeah, so I was thinking and initiating in my project closed space, semi-closed space, or open space, which is like where you can even feel the weather conditions, and they all would be, in my dream of that project, they would all be filled with certain activities from community gardening, kitchen, or some collective drawing session, singing, or collective music playing, and so on and so on. But then I graduated, and time fast a little bit, but I thought that I want to do something like continue that, because I just give me a second. Because I started to have this connection with the hospital, because I was writing to the administration asking about plans and so on, like architectural drawings, and the connection was already built a little bit. So I wanted to kind of continue on that. And the experiment platform seemed to be the place where I can continue something. And when I was, I applied, and then when I got the positive answer, I suddenly straight away brought like to the head of the hospital, like, hello Arūnas, how are you? I am writing to you that because I'm gonna be a part of experiment platform with the idea that it's in regards to your hospital. I want to meet you and talk about the further collaboration. And he answered and invited me, and this is the list of the dates of our emails, how many emails we did to each other through this all experiment time. So starting from the June, you see in the June it was quite few, and then July, August was quite sad, but then you see September better, and even better later. But as you see, the beginning it was quite hard, because I was thinking as well, I had the several feelings or aims to do, but similar to Oles and Evelina, I was sometimes feeling about giving up, because first I went, we discussed and we agreed that we're gonna do something, but then this all bureaucratic apparatus and trying to reach certain persons with who I want to like really meet, it was really hard. I kind of you see this a lot of letters. I started to going in a lot of questions. One of that was how to keep good mental health while working with subjects that are based on mental health issues, or how more efficiently reach needed people, and so on and so on. And then in a way I felt that, by the way, I feel that it is super hard to experiment, please help. So I really tried to somehow talk with my mentors and say what we should do, but then time was about that. Interesting summer, I left my job, and then I was thinking what to do next, but then there was the possibility that I could go to Iceland, and with mentors we said what I could do in Iceland with my project, and we discussed that, okay, shall I go to observe, find and go observe the psychiatric institution at Reykjavik. So you see how the institution in Reykjavik looks like, with the fences all around. Here you would, like, if you would be a patient, you would go and spend your time, very comfortable and cozy, I guess. But going more back to the my project, what I did more on this experiment platform was that when I came back from Iceland, suddenly a lot of emails came back from the hospital, and they said, okay, let's do something. And what I wanted to do is that before, my idea was to create some kind of think how to create better spaces for hospital for both participants and workers there, doctors and the public, like people. But I understood that I really want to get the kind of voices and feelings of not only the main board of the hospital, but as well of the patients. And I was trying to think how I can reach those patients and so on. So I was like really thinking how to do that, and I decided to have this community building workshop, multi-part singing. Interesting that it sounds, but I decided to do that, and I invited one lady who leaded us the sound to get this kind of community gathering and singing, and it was really very, very strange atmosphere in a way. But one of the things was what I asked for the doctors, that could you come please without the certain your white robes, and something that we will all feel that we are in the same corner while we are spending time together, that we will be both patient, doctor, and the person from the outside which I invited, that we will feel within that activity quite in a while as a really equal. Yeah, there were several different observations that you could read on the Architectural Fund pages, because I asked people how did they felt about coming there, people from outside, and there are some of the comments of them. And after that as well, I did this ink drawing session with the people from the hospital, and as well some interesting aspects of one person says, "My name is Marius." Yeah. Anyway, so these are the drawings we got from that ink session, but yeah, what's next? What's next? Actually, what's next is that I understood that while working with this very strong institution and trying to reach them and thinking about the time that is passing, while waiting that somebody would answer to you and to reach certain people, but with the main idea to get to know both patients and doctors. Yeah, it took time, but I think I would try to continue on certain meetings like this. And then I'm already planned with the hospital to have certain workshops to go more towards spatial planning, but while I really now know more people from the hospital who I could invite, so these activities were more like warming up place events to kind of sneak into this bureaucratic system and so on. So yeah, sorry for taking a lot of your time, and yeah, thank you. Let's reflect, heal, and gather together.
Thank you, Evelina. Maybe may I have some words? Quick.
Very quick. Yeah, it was an intensive psycho roller coaster with Evelina. Because also we felt like some also healing group, 3 of us. That's for me looked like this. Our session looked really like it was not relevant who is doing project, who is mentoring. I think we were just exchanging a lot. So thank you for this. I was also involved really into understanding this like. Complexity of non-medical healing, like who is ill in this society. I think this was the main issue. And at the end, you know, like I'm glad that you, if not open the door to collaborate with the hospital, you at least put a step. It hurts now, you know, if a door press you, but now you have to either to open it or to take your feet out. I think it's an interesting situation now because you know, it's not if you compare it with garage or like abandoned place, it's really complex federal level Babylon of power structures, and you know, who has a, do you as an architect and not medical worker have like a license to work with these people, you know, or moral ethical right, you know. So this is a lot of questions that I was not asking myself before we start our therapy, group therapy. So it was a good journey. I think I will be glad to, know more what's going to happen. Now, actually, this is a nice project where the most interesting part comes now. Actually, you just kind of open a bit Pandora box. So that's sorry to tell you that. Yeah. So that's my like really feeling, nothing logic.
Yeah. Maybe Erika, quick.
Yeah, so also thank you both. It's been really nice. Like it felt nice. We were three, like in this. But so then to be quick, I mean, I wanted to say. I think it ended really nice. Like for me, it's been this flow, like going in how to access, what to do, and I feel also it's been like a discussion about what is possible, no, or like trying this. The whole process almost been like what is possible, but then also what can you contribute? Not only like knowledge, but also what do you want to do? Like how do you find your position in this? And I feel you have started with that now. Like you have a way in. You have done now 2 workshops. There is like a method building up. Like for sure, this will help you next steps. So I think this is really nice. Like. Yeah, what's next? You ended, but I think you really, I mean, yeah, fast, but I think you landed in something, right? You have done through 2 workshops together with the patients, inviting people. It's this approach of also shifting towards society. Like, I mean, I think you have been building up an approach to what you are doing, methods and a way in. I think it's you should be happy, no? No, not feeling, yeah.
Good. So I would like to invite Erik, the last presentation. Also very compact, quick and precise.
Okay, so I'll just use Evelina's last slide as my presentation. Thank you, let's reflect, heal and gather together. So we gathered together already, and there's a dinner waiting at the bar space. How we can reflect, I would really appreciate if you take your time, like to reflect. I left my notebook, which I bought during the Experiments platform as a way of working as a proper architect. I don't know. I tried to run away from words, so I bought a sketchbook. So you can use it. There are pens if you reflect on what's happening now or what happened during the experiments during this architecture forum, and hopefully it can heal us. Because my project is about people gathering and me trying to find ways how you can direct it, and now we can have a telepathic session of what I would have talked about. So there's some context. You can see the pictures. I was doing a quick. I'm still doing it. The internship in Autarkia Delta Metiba, kind of informal art space that is like having a lot of fun when it wants to, but then also getting to reconstruction and kind of dormant this hibernation part and constant reconstruction. I was thinking, why don't we like think about how we do things here and also as people in general, and had this some format that they wanted to develop, but I was really I used this as a chance to test how can I direct human behavior in these gatherings, which directs itself anyhow, but how can you like kind of write the protocol? And there was a dinner where like some people from fondas and other had a dinner with my structure. They were writing their protocol. It was a bit too complex, but it gave me some data. I was also making pictures all the time that I went. That's quite nice. I like this. Then there was a second test for a symposium opening, and I was organizing, like again, tailoring for the occasion which is happening anyway. So organized a banquet, which looks nice if you make professional pictures, and kind of shows the real thing of this trashy sawdust from abandoned to yet alive. And there was those shells that remain for the exhibition, so kind of what happens and what stays is very different, and I'm very interested in what happens and not so much in what stays, but that was it. Something stayed, something happened. I got some data again, and the remains were rotting for a long time. Yeah, grand goals, small steps, trust the process, echo the joke that we had with Mia Drag during our call. And shoot the ball actually means to chat, chit chat, and whatever. So I invite you to shoot the ball and to write some moments that happened to you during this day, night, or whatever. So the main stage will be there, and we'll have food and dinner. It's a quite open source in space-wise, food-wise. There's a second stage behind this wall in the corridor, where you can write the protocol and drink some protocol as well. Yeah, let's have some night, and thank you very much. It was a great experiment platform, I think, well done. And the Arch Forum. Some announcements.